Once again, we welcome John Gorman as our guest speaker. John is a favorite mentor of poets and writers, always so generous with his words and his wit. John is Professor Emeritus of Literature at University of Houston Clear Lake, where he's taught for nearly 40 years. His poetry has been published in numerous journals throughout the U.S. and Canada. John's work is collected in 4 chapbooks, including The Oxford of Floodplain, which was produced to celebrate UHCL's 20th anniversary. John was named one of 3 state poets at the Austin International Poetry Festival in 2012. It's my honor to introduce John Gorman and his program, Touching Base.
Let me take out my cup of flight fuel. The first time I talked to you, I was saying to the person, oh, that's right. I was trying to arrange that, actually, so that my helpers would give me signals when I was going off kilter. Okay. First time I talked to you, I was drinking coffee, and my keeper and helper said, the service is about to start. And I said, I don't want to take the coffee into the sanctuary. Perhaps not a UU term. But she said, oh, don't worry about that. Coffee is a UU sacrament. So I am happy to participate in that aspect of church life. And I would like to say, introducing my talk, that there's probably nobody more contentious than religious people. They're always at each other's throats. And there are things like the filioque controversy over whether the word "and" should be included in the Nicene Creed, that make other people just kind of roll their heads and roll their eyes simultaneously and hope it all balances out. But I have become much more interested in the things that connect, and that the order of readings that I'm going to do begins with a fairly heavy dose of Mary Oliver, who is the most well-known UU poet in recent American times. But let me read. Some of you may have read it already, but this was my intro. In the Einstein universe, there is no center, or the center is wherever a perceiving presence pays attention. Poetry specializes in that effort. Attention is irregularly and unpredictably rewarded by a sense of focus, of contact with our depths, with what Wordsworth calls that inner eye, and Nietzsche calls the cave of inwardness. Religious life goes after that contact, so does mirth. Circles, which always have a center, signal completeness. In Revelations, or Apocalypse, depending on which side of that quarrel you're on, in Revelations, there is, and in a subsequent hymn, there's a marvelous image of saintly elders casting down their golden crowns around the glassy sea. That is one of the reasons that I wanted us to have a chance to sing Simple Gifts. That there's gifts to come down where you ought to be. That all of us have ego notions. We've built things up. If we have been energetic in our personal and professional lives, maybe we have chains of, have the resume, suitable chains of honors and distinctions and degrees. But there's a notion, too, that part of finding yourself, finding your balance, part of finding your as one centering aware presence in the universe is to scrape off the muck, scrape off the accretions of ego, and that lovely image of the shakers and the dance that you bend and stretch till you come out right. That is something that I think we can all aspire to. Here's something that the systematically secular poet Wallace Stevens says. Perhaps there are times of inherent excellence at which a kind of Swiss perfection comes. The Swiss perfection is an allusion, to watchmaking, and is an allusion to the intellectual style of the Enlightenment, where the god of deism is the watchmaker god who orders everything and winds it up, and then just kind of sits back and watches, that he isn't intercessionary and he isn't someone who monitors us for the slightest whiff of sin. That at which a kind of Swiss perfection comes. Perhaps there are moments of awakening, extreme, fortuitous, personal, in which we more than awaken, sit on the edge of sleep as on an elevation, and behold the academies like structures in a mist. That the idea too that an attention to the developing pulsations of perception in life, and without trying to hurt everything too narrowly and too closely, gives us this sense of being in the flow. And that's another part, I think, of finding your balance and of finding the center. But and the academies, that I should raise my hand like an erring basketball player here, that the academies are the official herders of meaning and the enforcers of herded meaning, that you see the structures of the academies as in a mist, as if they're dissolving, and that there can be that kind of imagery in which the dissolving of authority patterns is a sad thing, but the trick here is to see the dissolving of structures, of stubbornness, as a good thing, and that it reopens us to the unlimited arena of change. We're watching an array of poets in pursuit of such moments. And then the little notice also said, do you have a favorite poem about centering? Bring it along. Did anybody do that? Well, see, you're already not obeying authority. So that's a good sign. Let me get this rolling. A few of these poems are mine, but we're going to start with some of Mary Oliver's. And as I say to myself, with such richnesses about to unfurl themselves, I thought I might start twice. And once is by setting up a kind of an opposition, a polarity between the light and joyful and optimistic poetry and poetry that deals with the darker, eerier, more deeply puzzling aspects of reality. This is a lovely poem by Mary Oliver. It's a good way to start off any notion about discussing poetry. It's called The Summer Day. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung himself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous, complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me what you plan to do with your one wild and precious life. And then two of her poems about Blackwater Pond, which is a place she says she visited every day. At Blackwater Pond, the tossed waters have settled after a night of rain. I dip my cupped hands. I drink a long time. It tastes like stone, leaves, fire. It falls cold into my body, waking the bones. I hear them deep inside me, whispering, "Oh, what is that beautiful thing that just happened?" The quenching of thirst. And mornings at Blackwater. For years, every morning I drank from Blackwater Pond. It was flavored with oak leaves and also, no doubt, the feet of ducks. And one of the delights of poets who interest me most, like Mary Oliver, is that they don't worry about being solemn all the time. You know, they look at the deeply unsettling things. They gaze into the void. You know, that kind of thing that existential poets specialize in. And I do some of that myself, but they also don't mind being trivial and finding a kind of delight in trivial. And if their subject matter is trivial, the delight is serious. The delight is engagement with the world. The delight is paying attention and the reward for paying attention. It is, well, I'm going to start mornings at Blackwater over again. For years every morning I drank from Blackwater Pond. It was flavored with oak leaves and also, no doubt, the feet of ducks. And it always assuaged me from the dry bowl of the very far past. What I want to say is that the past is past, and the present is what your life is, and you are capable of choosing what that will be, darling citizen. So come to the pond, or the river of your imagination, or the harbor of your longing, and put your lips to the world and live your life. Now the other side, although the other side also yields, as I think some of the best meditative poems do, there's a confrontation with the difficult and a struggle, and it resolves in an affirmation of one sort or another. And this certainly happens in Theodore Recky's In a Dark Time. In a dark time, the eye begins to see. I meet my shadow in the deepening shade. I hear my echo in the echoing wood, a lord of nature weeping to a tree. I live between the heron and the wren, beasts of the hill and serpents of the den. What's madness but nobility of soul at odds with circumstance? The day is unfair. I know the purity of pure despair, my shadow pinned against a sweating wall, that place among the rocks. Is it a cave or winding path? The edge is what I have. A steady storm of correspondences, a night flowing with birds, a ragged moon, and in broad day the midnight come again. A man goes far to find out what he is. Death of the self in a long, tearless night. All natural shapes blazing unnatural light. Dark, dark my light and darker my desire. My soul, like some heat-maddened summer fly, keeps buzzing at the sill. Which eye is I? A fallen man, I climb out of my fear. The mind enters itself, and God the mind, and one is one, free in the tearing wind. And finally, back to Mary Oliver. This is a consoling poem for people on the way. Flight fuel. When death comes, like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut, when death comes like the measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door, full of curiosity, wondering what it is going to be like, that cottage of darkness. And therefore, I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy and as singular, and each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending, as all music does, towards silence, and each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I don't want to say, when it's over, I want to say, all my life I was a bride, married to amazement. I was the bridegroom, taking the world into my arms. When it's all over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. Sometimes when I'm doing a reading or teaching a class, I come across a phrase in a poem, and I think we should have this put on T-shirts, and we should all wear them. And I think "Bride of Arrangement" is a wonderful slogan. Okay. And the thing is that we don't need extraordinary circumstances to make the kind of psychological, spiritual progress that Mary Oliver is talking about. This is a poem of Rumi's, and many of you may know it. It's called "You Sweep the Floor." And Rumi is in the absolutely ordinary circumstances. I was reading this once in Starbucks, and I was looking out at the room, and one of the baristas was sweeping the floor, and it was all I could do, because, I don't want to sing like a civic oddity with the police and the whole psychiatric department of UTMB constantly monitoring my behavior. So I didn't, but I wanted to go up to him and say, "Let me read you this poem." You sweep the floor. The Lord of beauty enters the soul as a man walks into an orchard in spring. Come into me that way again. Light the lamp in the eye of Joseph. Cure Jacob's sadness. Though you never left, come and sit down here and ask, why are you so confused? Like a fresh idea in an artist's mind, you fashion things before they come into being. You sweep the floor like a man who keeps the doorway. When you brush the form clean, it becomes what it truly is. You guard your silence perfectly, like a water bag that doesn't leak. You live where Shams lives, Shams was the great friend of Rumi, and his name is taken from this is an Islamic civilization in Persia, Afghanistan, but he comes from it comes from Shamash, the sun god of ancient Babylonia, and it's a reference to the sun, and it becomes a personal name. You live where Shams lives because your heart donkey was strong enough to take you there. How lovely! I mean, and that I think could function as a kind of a mantra, that your heart donkey was strong enough to take you there. You say yes. Now, the other infusion from the ordinary is from a poem of Sylvia Plath's. Sylvia Plath is often not thought of as, or is not often thought of as a poet with religious yearnings, but she had them. And she may in fact be leaning in from the other dimension to keep me from finding the place in the book that I want. Come on. The poem is called Black Rook in Rainy Weather. This is really irritating. But I have been recommending that people climb down from their peaks of self-congratulation, and now I don't even need to deliberately climb down because I have pushed myself off. Give me another second here. Go deeply into yourselves. Feed a carrot or a few lumps of sugar or an apple to your heart donkey. I'll see if I can come in some way toward redeeming myself here. Waka, 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 waka. Maybe yes, maybe no. Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you. Sisterly support. On that stiff twig up there hunches a wet black rook, arranging and rearranging its feathers in the rain. I do not expect a miracle or an accident to set the sight on fire in my eye. I seek no more in the desultory weather some design, but let spotted leaves fall as they fall without ceremony or portent. Although I admit I desire occasionally some back talk from the mute sky. And it's interesting, I think it's a real signal of 20th century consciousness to be embarrassed about having spiritual ambitions. You know, she says, I'm not doing this anymore. You know, but if she's not doing it anymore, she once must have. And she hesitates, qualification, pause, qualification, new breath, qualification, pause. But although I admit, I desire, occasionally, some back talk from the mute sky. Say, yes, okay. let the Spirit speak over the surface of the earth. I can't honestly complain. A certain minor light may still leap incandescent out of the kitchen table or chair, as if a celestial burning took possession of the most obtuse object now and then. thus hallowing an interval otherwise inconsequent by bestowing largesse, honor, one might say love. At any rate, I now walk wary, for it could happen, even in this dull, ruinous landscape, skeptical, yet politic, ignorant of whatever angel may choose to flare suddenly at my elbow. I only know a rook, ordering its black feathers, can so shine as to seize my senses, haul my eyelids up, and grant a brief respite from fear of total neutrality. With luck, trekking through this season of fatigue, I shall patch together a content of sorts. Miracles occur, if you care to call these spasmodic tricks of radiance miracles. The wait has begun again, the long wait for the angel, for that rare, random descent. But I think this is part of awareness and part of the idea of persisting, not giving up. That we keep pressing and we keep pressing and we keep pressing. And you can't guarantee, there isn't a covenant or a contract that says if you ask 6 times, you'll get it. And if you ask 5 times, you won't. But this is also caught. Let me give you back your phone. Of a poem by Anne Sexton called Rowing. A story, let it go, let it come. I was stamped out like a Plymouth fender into this world. First came the crib with its glacial bars, then dolls and the devotion of their plastic mouths. Then there was school, the little straight rows of chairs blotting my name over and over, but under sea all the time. A stranger whose elbows wouldn't work. Then there was life with its cruel houses and people who seldom touched, though touch is all. But I grew, like a pig in a trench coat, I grew. And then there were many strange apparitions, the nagging rain, the sun turning into poison, and all of that. Saws working through my heart, but I grew, and God was there like an island I had not rowed to, still ignorant of him. My arms and my legs worked, and I grew. I wore rubies and bought tomatoes, and now in my middle age, about 19 in the head, I'd say, I am rowing, though the oarlocks stick and are rusty, and the sea blinks and rolls like a worried eyeball, but I am rowing, though the wind pushes me back, and I know that island will not be perfect. It will have the flaws of life, the absurdities of the dinner table, but there will be a door, and I will open it, and I will get rid of the rat inside of me, the gnawing, pestilential rat, and God will take it with his 2 hands and embrace it. As the African says, this is my tale which I have told. If it be sweet, if it be not sweet, take somewhere else, and let some return to me. This story ends with me still rowing. And then there is a poem called The Rowing Ended. Do you want to hear it? Okay. I'm mooring a rowboat at the dock of the island called God. This dock is made in the shape of a fish, and there are many boats moored at many different docks. It's okay, I say to myself, with blisters that broke and healed, saying themselves over and over, the salt sticking to my face and arms like a glue skin packed with grains of tapioca. I empty myself from our wooden boat onto the flesh of the island. On with it, he says, and thus we squat on the rocks by the sea and play, can it be true, a game of poker. How could you imagine that? An encounter with God that becomes a spontaneous poker game. He calls me, and that's wonderful, that poem, called by God. You say, I call. He calls me. I win because I hold a royal straight flush. He wins because he holds 5 aces. A wild card had been announced, but I hadn't heard it, being in such a state of awe. And when he took off the cards and dealt, as he plunks down his 5 aces, and I sit grinning with my royal flush, he starts to laugh, the laughter rolling like the hoop out of his mouth into mine, and such laughter that he doubles right over the laughing, a rejoice chorus of our 2 triumphs. Then I laugh, the fishy dock laughs, the sea laughs, the island laughs, the absurd laughs. Dearest dealer, I, with my royal straight flush, love you so much for your wild card, that untamable, eternal, gut-driven ha-ha and lucky love. St. Thomas Aquinas says somewhere that God created the universe in play. And that this is a spirit that Anne Sexton, for the moment anyway, participates in. Now, a couple of quick motifs. People go many places looking for the opening toward transcendence, and one of the places is nature, and your own Ralph Waldo Emerson is the great exemplar of this in American poetry. However, we're not going to read Emerson, we're going to read me. I've got 2 poems with natural settings. One is called Talk. And it was written hoping it would get accepted for a mixed media exhibit at UH downtown called Can These Stones Talk? And it did get accepted. And so I was all set up, and therefore I was more distant from the spiritual because I would say, I'll go poem. But Talk. How many dawns have shattered on these mountains? Bright curtains, lighter than Venetian glass, lighter than the clouds of pollen that ride in slow water in the shadowy lowlands, yellow-green on black or black on silver, lighter than the diaphanous lives that blossom in the sea. Rain seems only to seem to conquer the mountains, but its gray spikes, its magician's sheets really erode them, and the snow melts, carrying off a bit of what it glorified. Even light eats them, given enough time. Words, too, are meeting or taking, lingering a while, a crown of false assurance before they collapse and score our walls. Stars, history, lifetimes, what we want is the hardness of matter. Can we speak without stupidity of our love for rocks? Can we call light and granite gentle with each other? Can we pretend to understand this stroking that was so old when language was born in us, that has so barely begun? And from talk, we go to a poem called Wordlessness. I think I may have read this to you before, and so I probably told this little lead-in anecdote. Um, I had been invited to speak at a Baha'i fireside, and I figured, well, this is a sure way to find out whether wordlessness is actually a spiritual poem, because they know about all this stuff. And I was told that it was, and I felt so set up that, again, I was getting farther and farther from my goal by getting bigger and bigger in my ego. And I'm still happy with myself for it. Wordlessness, fleabane, verbena, fire lily, how calmly they go at their work of binding in day. A voice asks, why not? But such shrewdness undershoots its mark. Their simplicity evades us. In the grass, a little survival, a little predation, the gaining and fall of form. Sun, silence, we add ourselves only to lapse to a throbbing where everything pulses and shines. We're not wrong to say there's an atmosphere. Are we willing to feel it prior, larger, a brightness, this softness as if of attention here on its own without us? We'll never know. We'll never know. Light enters the leaves and leaves translucence, bark, earth, everything blossoms. We animals watch it in one another's eyes, the repose of our bodies, the light on our fur or our wings, and then we let it vanish, leaping out that inch beyond the shell of ourselves to fleabane, dockwork, camphor daisy, unnamed now, alone in radiance, together. And then finally, another poem from a semi-unexpected source. This is Edna St. Vincent Millay. You may know her as I know her and love her for her sarcastic poems, and she can just sweep the floor with her sarcasm. But this is a meditative poem, and it's a beautiful poem about the seacoast in Maine. She was born in Maine and raised there. It's called Ragged Island. There, where those black spruces crowd to the edge of the precipitous cliff above your boat, under the eastern wall of the island, and no wave breaks, as if all had been done and long ago that needed doing, and the cold tide, unimpeded by shoal or shelving ledge, moves up and down instead of in and out. And there's no driftwood there because there is no beach. Clean cliff going down as deep as clear water can reach. No driftwood such as abounds on the roaring shingle to be hefted home for fires in the kitchen stove. Barrels banged ashore about the boiling outer harbor, lobster buoys on eel grass of the sheltered cove. There, though, thought unbraids itself, and the mind becomes single. What a beautiful image. I mean, we're not through with the poem yet, but I want to interrupt it to go, and faint with joy and gratitude. And I think that this is an image that a woman is much more likely to make than a man. That the unbraiding is, the taking down of your hair, and the unweaving of a woven complexity, and it's getting back to the simple. It's, that theme is underlying poem after poem after poem by all these ego-driven poets who are seeking to purify themselves of ego and become sources of light. There, thought unbraids itself, and the mind becomes single. There, you row with tranquil oars, and the ocean shows no scar from the cutting of your placid keel. Care becomes senseless there. Pride and promotion remote. You only look, you scarcely feel. Even adventure, with its vital uses, is aimless. Ardor now, and thrift is waste. Oh, to be there under the silent spruces, where the wide, quiet evening darkens without haste, over a sea with death acquainted, yet forever chaste. Now, as someone who grew up going to pep rallies, I will say, Edna, Edna, Edna. But we also go to look at human love. And this is a poem about marriage called Confection. That if you go back to the Latin roots, it means the making things work together. Cohesion itself is a mystery. Mathematicians sit focused on it, their minds blazing like vigil lights, even as I type and retype these lines that pretend to explain marriage by the way rock candy is made. It's a string you drag through the sweetened water. The two of you, it seems, emit these filaments, only a few, a fight you have over and over, a set of ironies, a passion for social justice or stoneware jugs, a hankering for each other's mouths and bodies, the same sort of Catholic childhood or summer vacation cottage by a lake in Maine. Whatever it is that oozes out of you over the years winds itself around what looks like an emptiness, the space in which gravity occurs, or what the Japanese call ma. Thus the fiber. The water has to have been hot, and now that it's cooling, you troll it for 20 years, 40 years, 60 years, gathering accretions, a jumble of blocky shapes, some blunted, some broken, that can look in one sort of light like diamonds. But when you peer more closely, say under a microscope, you see that there are billions of tiny houses, their roofs all pointing the same way. Or you go to art, and this will be, I guess it should be, the last of my categories. That back to Mary Oliver. This is a poem called Franz Marc's Blue Houses. Franz Marc, or Blue Horses. I got confused with the end of my last poem. These are the blue horses. And Franz Marc, do people know Franz Marc? I didn't. But you are the relentlessly European. Yes. So Vera knows him. He was a painter around, and this turns out to be an unhappy time reference to the First World War, in which he died. He died at the Battle of Verdun. So he died comparatively young, and the paintings that he left were in the expressionist mode, and then we're moving in the direction of futurism and cubism, and you can see some of that. You can see a kind of cousinliness with Picasso in these horses. But here's what she says. I step into the painting of the 4 blue horses. I am not even surprised that I can do this. One of the horses walks toward me. His blue nose noses me lightly. I put my arm over his blue mane, not holding on, just commingling. He allows me my pleasure. Franz Marc died a young man, shrapnel in his brain. I would rather die than try to explain to the blue horses what war is. They would either faint in horror or simply find it impossible to believe. I do not know how to thank you, Franz Marc. Maybe our world will grow kinder eventually. Maybe the desire to make something beautiful is the peace of God that is inside each of us. Now, all four horses have come closer, are bending their faces toward me as if they have secrets to tell. I don't expect them to speak, and they don't. If being so beautiful isn't enough, what could they possibly say? There they are again, being beautiful and self-sufficient and helping us who were come into consciousness so long after they were made. The last of these art poems is from me, and it's from being a poet and doing something and getting it right and actually making it work, either before or after going through agonizing arguments with people in your working group, or with yourself and your editing pencil. That the setup is that we had at UH Clear Lake for many years a literary magazine called Biosphere, and the woman who was in charge of Biosphere on the faculty came to one of my creative writing classes to say, as they said every semester, that they were extending the deadlines for submission. And then she looked at us and said, "Don't any of you have any happy poems?" And we all laughed in delight because we knew what she was talking about. That poets kind of thrive on the dismal, sometimes so they can overcome it, and sometimes so they can wallow in it. But it's like tabloid newspapers. It sells copy. So I wrote one, and I dedicated it to Tallene Washington, who was the woman in question. And in this poem, I become a dog. I don't begin it by saying, "I am an emeritus professor of literature with a PhD from a notable American university." Instead, I'm a dog. I'm riding in the bed of a pickup truck. It's not going to the vet, it's going to the beach. Look at me, dogs and people. I'm captain of a truck, paws on the gunwale, tongue to the wind. I'm barking at everything I see. I'm a lilac, an apple tree full of blossom. I'm huge, a hydrangea, a peony, no shy flower that bloometh and fadeth, silly annuals. I'm perennials, lather yourselves in the wonder of my lavishness. All literature wants me for its metaphors. Woo, lavish! And all life wants to be just like this. I'm writing a poem, a brand new poem, and I wrote it. I sprouted it, brought it to the reading, to the microphone. I'm happy. Applause, 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 applause. I'm barking at everything I see. Thank you, Yu. If we had infinite time, there were 3 more poems I would read, but I'm not going to make sure that I never get invited again. Because maybe if I get invited again, I'll read the 3 poems. But one of them is just wonderful. It's by A.R. Emmons, and it's also very long, so it's easy to resist the impulse to say, "Oh hell, I'll read it anyway." He takes a walk along the beach, and you understand everything about the universe from a kind of Darwinian but spiritual perspective. It's called Corson's Inlet. Okay. live in the hope that we will encounter it later on. Thanks again.